Hello, I am Yoonae. To all the participants from home and abroad, and also to my colleagues overseas, I'd like to send my welcome. And also to all volunteers and experts here with us in Korea, I'd like to extend my gratitude. Well, 8 years ago, when the Seoul ferry disaster took place, I continued to feel the guilt for not being able to protect them since then. And once again, I am ashamed and feel guilty as an adult as we have recently experienced another disaster in Itaewon. I pray for the souls of the victims and offer my deepest condolences to the bereaved and the survivors. And let us now gather our aching hearts together and think about what we could do and how to do differently for a safe society together. First of all, before talking about the volunteer experience in Korea during the COVID-19 period, let us take a brief look at the history of volunteering in modern and contemporary history in Korea. The Independence Movement Army, formed in Wuhan, Hubei Province, China in 1938, was also a volunteer group when the pressure became very severe under the Japanese colonial rule. And since liberation, the trend has led to democratic movements and civic participation movements on various social issues. And also, during the 1964 severe flood disaster, we also benefited greatly through the civic participation and volunteering. The civic participation in volunteers has been an important driver of a turnaround and it helped the bereaved victims to get back on their feet. While there are many college students going abroad for volunteering these days, but more than 50 years ago, it was a kind of an eye-opening opportunity to social problems when our college students first started going to rural areas for volunteering. There was the 1988 Seoul Olympics and 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. And during the Olympics, volunteers were willing to accept the heat and the cold and served as civilian diplomatic envoys. With the 1988 Olympics, the word or the concept volunteer became widely known in Korea. Whenever there are tragic man-made disasters, volunteers ran to the scene and tried their best to share the pain. During the 2007 oil spill in Taeyang region, 1.23 million volunteers lined up to the site to clean up the oil stain, and this made the ecological restoration much faster. And there's even a person who volunteered for 2 months in Taean that became an environmental activist later on. When I look at these photos, I still feel so moved and impressed. And during the Seoul ferry disaster, numerous volunteers helped the families of the missing and rescue teams at Jindo Island and the Pengmok port where the accident occurred. In an early chaotic situation, the We Are a Family rule provided important guidelines for the volunteers to engage in their volunteering work from the perspective of their families. And as we once again went through the Itaewon tragedy or disaster, we learned that in the most severe situations, we have to think from the perspectives of the most suffering people and look at the problem and unite together. In addition, some of the volunteers at that time have participated in the one-person relay protest with the families of the missing people, arguing and calling that such safety accidents should no longer occur. And the residents initially expressed their opposition to the announcements by the administrative authorities without the prior consultation with the residents that they would quarantine Korean residents from Wuhan, China at the Human Resource Development Center at Asan and Jincheon for 2 weeks, who were isolated at the outbreak of the COVID-19 in January 2020. In the beginning, they were scared and felt danger because it was something they never went through. However, soon the citizens in Asan and Jincheon changed their minds and said, "We are Asan," and welcomed them and changed the atmosphere. And welcoming those from Wuhan with a sign saying, "Please rest comfortably for 2 weeks." It was a really warm event that brought about a turnaround in the COVID-19 situation at a time when everyone was terrified. During the COVID-19 period, about 4.58 million citizens, which is more than 10% of the adult population aged 20 or older, participated in volunteering in a severe situation with COVID-19. There were the most activities to support the vulnerable, the isolated due to COVID-19, and this led to volunteering activities necessary during the COVID-19 period, such as making and distributing masks, guiding vaccinations, or supporting the self-quarantine. Also, when the masks were scarce in the early days of COVID-19, 160,000 volunteers made 3.03 million multi-use masks in just 3 months and tried to share the pain by delivering them to the vulnerable people who couldn't afford to buy the mask due to the cost, and the foreign workers from multicultural families who could not buy the public masks. For more than 1 million citizens who felt psychological anxiety, helplessness, and depression due to COVID-19, the citizens prepared small stages to comfort the vulnerable and delivered lunchboxes and daily necessities, also delivered companion plants, and delivered support letters, bottled water, masks, and snacks to the medical staff who were suffering from such extreme fatigue. In addition, the campaign relay was held for citizens who supported the medical staff and voluntarily practiced social distancing, and also the small business owners who had to endure the pain. Recently, Kwangwon University Industry Academic Cooperation Center conducted a study on the new normal and practical strategy of volunteer service at the request of the Korean Volunteer Center. Here are many useful material for the transition of practice, such as a volunteer safety manual, so I hope it will be a good reference for both home and abroad. And I'll talk about the new normal shortly after. In this study, the 1365 volunteer portal of Korea has shown the trend of changes in the total volunteer work over the past 3 years. And as you can see, volunteer work dropped very dramatically around February 2020 at this point of time. There's a drastic decline, and ever since, as you can see, the rate hasn't recovered that much. I believe this is a global trend we're seeing worldwide. And just as Ms. Cirillo has mentioned, we could now learn some good know-how to promote volunteering and also share them together so that we can overcome this situation. Also, the types of volunteer activities are also seen to have the largest decrease in the total amount of support for convenience of life, which uses a lot of face-to-face activities, and also in cultural events and related areas. This is marked in the green box. Also, in the face of everyday disasters, the total amount of volunteer work in this field has increased. And in addition, activities for carbon neutrality have also increased in proportion.
Also noteworthy here is that many one-time volunteers who were hit by pandemic stopped their activities because they thought that the pandemic is quite dangerous, but also 1 to 2% volunteers who overcame the pandemic and continued to participate in volunteer work continued their activities. Even in the midst of many difficulties and also tough regulation and everything's blocked out, still, in this situation, we found out that many continue to volunteer and they tried something new. So we experienced new changes taking place. You probably have various experiences right now, and In those experiences, I believe that when we are faced with another round of pandemic, probably we might come up with a different approach, and I'm sure that you will not repeat the same mistake. First of all, I'd like to summarize what we have learned through various experiences during the pandemic. What we have confirmed through the pandemic is, even in severe situation where there were many regulations related with the quarantines or etc. for safety of the citizens, it was confirmed that the will of the citizen to participate in the volunteering work was still there. The photo you are looking at right now was taken at the subway station. It was difficult to supply masks with a proper quality to medical healthcare staff due to the shortage of the mask. Then citizens donated public mask that they bought at pharmacies, and this is an activity where they received clothes mask made by volunteers. I wonder how many volunteers could come out of this situation, but as if they were waiting for something to happen. As you can see here, so many volunteers came to the site and supported this activity. Do you know what they said? I came here because I thought I had to do something, and I feel great that I'm doing something. And in the numerous disaster sites, these are the comments that you frequently hear. Once again, you can confirm the willingness of the volunteer. Under tough regulations, grassroots united once again to make masks, prepare, deliver side dishes, especially those who are starving because the meals were cut off. They gather and they make Korean traditional dish called kimbap early in the morning and then distribute them to the people suffering from hunger. And you know what they say? They said that they felt the vitality of life through volunteering work. We were able to confirm that. I was able to confirm that those who receive help once again felt vitality, and also those who receive help felt great too. At a time when isolations and also block prohibited people to move around, once again, we thought about how to help people, how we can carry out volunteering work. The volunteering work leaders, these are the concerns for us. I'll give one example. In a very small town located in Jingu, Busan City, even during the pandemic, there are cases where local residents overcame the COVID-19 situation by sharing meals with each other, taking care of those in difficult circumstances, delivering the side dishes together, continuing the community activities. They wisely overcame the social problem of isolations and eating problem, especially the elderly people living alone in Korea. They die out of hunger or out of isolations. And if we continue to take care of them together through volunteering work, we can resolve social issues. In addition, by using online technology in their own living environment, we witness increasing new forms of volunteer work, whether sharing side dishes with neighbors or posting photos of their activities using SNS. Volunteer activities are also creating a new format, and they were sharing their activities. And we were able to see that, for example, there were many non-face-to-face volunteer activities such as hanging a lunchbox on the doorknob of others were also witnessed. When in early stage of COVID-19, many confirmed cases occurred in Daegu City in early stage when supplies for medical staff and confirmed patients were recruited across the country. Based on our drive-through test experience, we solicited donation from people. So contactless way, the only thing they can do is that they just slightly open the window of their car and donated the product. So we were able to collect the donation 3 to 4 times more than what we expected. As you can see, we were able to witness that citizens are more than willing to provide hand of help, such as making masks for themselves at home or make to share with other people such as multicultural families who cannot buy this mask, or many good consumption or reasonable consumption came to help small business or company also produce and donated hand sanitizers, for example. And even a company who produce soju, they quickly turn their manufacturing and then produce masks. Due to pandemic and climate crisis, disasters are becoming routine thing. In that process, volunteers at each disaster site, you can see that they are working actively, and also the volunteers are working in a very effective way. And I wonder how we can respect the recipient at the same time. How can the volunteer work can be conducted from the standpoint of the person who are suffering in the most difficult situations, but whose dignity can be respected and can receive the donation. So I have accumulated quite a bit of experiences, and also the day-to-day collaborative efforts between the private sector and public sector can be also helpful. In a disaster site, usually private companies or organizations, NGO, work together. I'll give an example. In the city of Daegu, in early 2020, when the COVID-19 confirmed cases spiked, there was a company, and I'll share the company's case. There were 911 emergency rescue workers who came here, and they were busy rescuing people, but their meals were like temporary noodles, and they wanted to have a proper meals. And then this company called KT, they said that they will pay the financial support and ask us to provide hot meals to the 911 paramedics who came to transport patients from all over the country to the place called one Buddhism site where we have a closer relationship. So what we did is a volunteer made rice and side dishes in a safe place away from each other, and then we delivered the food that we had prepared and then gave to the 911 paramedics. So this is a great example how the company and the volunteering work organizations can work together. Then, how should we change the practice of volunteering? As we went through the volunteer COVID-19, we made rapid transitions to a digital society. In the midst of the COVID virus and the frequent climate crisis, environmental values have emerged as our top priority. It deepens the experience that danger is with us. Although we keenly feel the danger and crisis are right next to us, still, the role of the government is extremely important and is expanding in this process. And also, there are many individuals who are eager to contribute their activities. So, the task of transitioning to a digital online-based volunteer work. At the same time, how can we upgrade the environmental friendly, carbon neutral, disaster protections volunteer work? We need to find the solutions. Likewise, we need to identify the needs of the people. Instead of giving what we want to give, we need to ask what they need so that our donations or our help can be actually be really helpful to these people. And we need to make sure to create their own self-help groups. And also, I just want to emphasize the informal volunteers are very active, just like other countries. There are citizens who are waiting for an opportunity to disseminate activities so that they can participate in solving social problems. Should be our task. Flexible support must be given to those who move voluntarily in times of crisis. In the directions of minimizing administration in case of the emergency support, there were cases that we provided video. I will show you an example. In the early stage of COVID-19, together with 5 restaurants, they provided food to the children who urgently need. Around 200 children receive food. They created video, a short image, and then we sent that to Hope Bridge NGO, and then more than 60 restaurants located in Busan area worked together. More than 2,400 children were able to receive lunchbox. This could be a great flexible way to help people in need. What's important right now is we should not look at citizen as a target to control or a target to be under regulation, but rather a subject of response. Volunteers really have the power to transform the world of anxiety, fear, concern, isolations to alienations into new phase of building relationship of hope, support in the social atmosphere. Then, how should we change the practice of volunteering? First, by asking questions to ourselves, what we have experienced so far. We need to communicate each other. In early stage of COVID-19, together with the working people at the Korea Volunteer Center, I asked them, how do you feel? We talk about the frustrations that we felt, but we realized that nobody has ever asked a question like that. Right after the Itaewon incident occurred, using the online methodology, we had a meeting, we discussed, we exchanged our views, we were able to talk to each other, which was a great. So during the COVID-19 time, we believe that many of us were able to talk to each other, and I believe that now is the time to have that kind of communication channel. And we need to come up with a manual and then upgrade it and then share that with each other. And contactless and contact methodology both have shortcomings and advantages. And we need to make sure how to equip ourselves. We need to prepare for that. Of course, asking few questions can be very helpful, but also we need to share our experiences and also lessons that we learned. And instead of just getting rid of the lessons that we learned, we need to share that. The disasters that we have experienced, what lessons did we learn? Can volunteer work together with preventions and policy activity to solve the fundamental social problems? What can do they actually take actions? What are some of the safe practices you have learned during the pandemic? What could we learn from the examples of citizens making change themselves? What are the influences and achievements and how to express them? These are the questions that we need to ask each other, and I hope that we can evolve and achieve progress. Thank you.